Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful and the most kind. Welcome to Smart Learning Academy. Today we are going to study clause. A clause is a group of words that includes a subject and a verb. Clause अल्फाज के ऐसे मजमू को कहते हैं जिसमें subject और verb हो. The subject of a clause can be mentioned or hidden, but the verb must be apparent. Clause में subject hidden भी हो सकते हैं और mention भी हो सकते हैं, लेकिन verb की मौजूदगी ज़रूरी है. Example: I graduated last year. I is the subject, graduated is the verb. So this is called a clause and it can also call a sentence. Open the door. So open the door is a clause. We have the verb here, while the subject is hidden subject you. जिस तरह imperative sentences है. I saw him. I is the subject, saw is the verb. This is also called a clause. Types of clause. Clauses are mainly of two types. Clauses के दो अक़साम है. One, dependent clause. Another is independent clause. एक को हम dependent clause कहते हैं, एक को हम independent clause कहते हैं. Dependent clause का मतलब है जो दूसरे पे इन्हिसार कर ले, और independent का मतलब है आज़ाद. Example: He bought a car. He subject, bought is a verb. This is a clause and it gives a complete meaning. So this is independent clause. Which was too expensive is dependent clause because it doesn't give complete meaning. When I was going to college, I had an accident. So when I was going to college is dependent clause, while I had an accident is independent clause. जब हमारे dependent clause पहले यूज़ हो तो हम वहाँ पे काम इस्तेमाल करेंगे, लेकिन अगर independent clause पहले यूज़ हो तो हम काम इस्तेमाल नहीं करेंगे. और एक दूसरी चीज़ को याद रख ले कि dependent clause को independent की ज़रूरत है ताकि complete meaning दे सके. Now what is independent clause? An independent clause is a complete sentence and it can stand alone as a sentence. जो independent clause है वो complete sentence है. It is also called a sentence or main clause. इस independent clause को हम sentence भी कह सकते हैं और main clause भी कह सकते हैं. Example: He is a wise man. So he is the subject, is the verb. This is called a clause and it is independent clause because it gives a complete meaning. I like him. I is the subject, like is the verb, and this is a complete sentence. Can you do it? You subject है और do verb है. इसको हम एक independent clause कहते हैं. Do it please. यहाँ पे do जो है वो verb है, जबकि हमारे subject hidden subject है you, और इसको हम imperative sentence कहते हैं. What is dependent clause? A dependent clause is an incomplete sentence. Dependent clause को हम नामुकम्मल जुमला कहते हैं. It cannot stand alone as a sentence. ये अकेले जुमले की तरह इस्तेमाल नहीं हो सकते. And it depends on another clause to give complete meaning. और इस डिपेंडेंट क्लास को एक और क्लास की ज़रूरत है कि वो कंप्लीट मीनिंग दे सके. इट इज़ ऑल्सो कॉल्ड सबऑर्डिनेटिंग क्लास. इस डिपेंडेंट क्लॉज को हम सबऑर्डिनेटिंग क्लॉज भी कहते हैं। एग्जाम्पल, I know the man who stole the watch. I know the man is a complete sentence and this is called independent clause, while who stole the watch is independent clause and it doesn't give a complete meaning. If we remove I know the man, then it doesn't give a complete sense. So that is why who stole the watch depends on this main clause to give a complete meaning. He bought a car which was too expensive. He bought a car is independent clause, which was too expensive is dependent clause, and which was too expensive depends on he bought a car to give a complete meaning. If you don't eat, I won't go. If you don't eat is called dependent clause. I won't go is independent clause. Note, if a dependent clause comes first, a comma should be used at the end of a dependent clause. जिस तरह ये एग्जाम्पल है, if you don't eat, dependent clause पहले यूज हुआ है तो हमें कॉमा लगाना होगा। अगर independent clause पहले हो तो फिर हम कॉमा यूज नहीं करते। Now this is your quiz time. Read the sentences. Decide the underlined clause is a dependent or independent clause. So we have given you some sentences. You have to see the underlined part is dependent or independent. Then you have to write your answers in the comment box. And if you have any difficulty, you can ask me in the comment box. Thanks for watching.